Welcome to another episode of Missionary Moneymaker. While making a dime is making a difference, I'm your podcast host, Carl Wynn. And today we're going to talk about what we've been talking about for the last 3 podcast episodes, Christianity and confidence, meaning how can we be confident as Christians in the marketplace? And so last week we talked about the last 2 weeks we talked about the 2 twin towers of unproductivity, which are it's impossible and I'm incapable. And so because we have destroyed that, we've demoed the twin towers of unproductivity in this episode today, and in the following episodes, we're going to be building up, or should I say constructing, the twin towers of productivity, because I believe that confidence is so important for us to have as Christians in the marketplace so that we can carry out our calling and make a meaningful contribution. And without confidence, that's not going to happen. Now, I want to say this as we're talking about this. I'm not talking about confidence that's absent from God. And so I'm not talking about pride, but I'm talking about productivity. And so in this episode, what we're going to talk about is how can we have confidence as Christians while also depending on God. And so I want to start off with this quote. Napoleon Hill says this: whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And so that's Napoleon Hill. And so as I think about that particular quote, we have to realize that if we're going to have confidence and depend on God properly, then we need to be renewed in our mind as we think about confidence, as we think about pride, as we think about productivity. We need to allow the word of God to go to work on our minds, on our thoughts, so that we can see confidence from his perspective. We can see confidence from the word of God perspective, because remember, it is him that is giving us confidence. It is him who's made us, who's entrusted us with our time, our talent, our treasures, and what I call our trust, our relationships. And so he's deposited in it. He's given it to us. So the question is, how do we utilize it? And to do that properly, we have to be renewed in our mind. And so, again, as you know, my goal of this podcast and the Missionary Moneymaker community is to help Christians in the marketplace become effective missionaries, right? And to help increase your impact, your income, and your influence, and glorify God and create value for other people. In short, I want to empower Christians to help others become more happy, healthy, and holy. And so without productivity, without confidence, without the twin towers of productivities, which are it's possible and I'm capable, then there will exist, right? There will exist a lack of confidence to carry out our calling in the marketplace. So if you don't understand productivity, if you believe that it's impossible, and that you believe that you're incapable, then you're not going to be productive. But when you believe that it's possible, and when you believe that you're capable, then your productivity level increases. You cannot separate the two. They're one. You gotta believe that in order for you to really be productive. Don't let the music die with you. That is something I've been telling Christians for the last year. Many Christians say that they want to write a book. Well, that is my goal, is not to let the music die with you. Because guess what? Once you die, the value that you have, it can't come back out. And writing a book is a great way to increase your impact, your income, and influence. And my goal is to help 10,000 Christians in 2026 write and publish a book. So if that's you, I want you to download this free worksheet. It's called 5 Ways to Finding Your Unique Book Idea. And I want to help you write your book. Remember, don't let the music die with you. Go ahead and start singing it loud and proud right now. And remember, this is not about pride, but it's about productivity. And so to go further in this episode, I want to first start off by defining productivity. So productivity is this: having the quality or power of producing, especially in abundance. The second definition of productivity is effective in bringing about. And the third definition of productivity is yielding results, benefits, or profits. I want to say this because I need to continue to remind you as a believer, it's not about pride, but it's about productivity. Let me say that again. It's not about pride, but it's about productivity. You need to realize that this message that I'm sharing with you about confidence is not about pride, but it's about productivity. How can you contribute better at a higher level when you understand confidence from God's perspective? And to do that is, number one, we're going to start with point number one is we're going to construct these twin towers of productivity. And in order to build the twin towers of productivity, we're going to look at three different points. The first point is this: entrusted. We need to understand what we've been entrusted with. And to do that is we must believe we have the quality or power of producing something of value. And that goes back to entrusted. We need to understand what we have been entrusted with. Without this belief, we will reframe from moving forward. But with this belief, we can move mountains. Now, let me tell you this story. So in the summer of 2025, my wife, my 5 children, and my mom, we took a road trip to Western United States, much of Southwestern United States. And so we left Houston, Texas, and we just headed west. And so what I realized in Houston compared to the West is that, it's Houston is flat and it's green. But as we left and got to West Texas, and we ended up in New Mexico and California, those places are not flat. They're at a higher elevation, and it's not green, it's brown. I was like, man, there's a lot of brown stuff out here. And so for the first time, I started to see real mountains. I had never seen real mountains because I have never been that far west. But last summer, we saw real mountains. And so as we approached Albuquerque, New Mexico, I was amazed at the ingenuity of people. The highways that we were driving on were cut out of the mountain. And not only that, but I saw houses perched on cliffs of the hills. I'm like, man, that's a house up there? How did they get it up there? It's because somebody designed it and they put it there. And so, but getting to Albuquerque was pretty much just the tip of the ice. Because as we got to the national parks in California, there were roads and entire cities that was 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 feet in elevation. And even while we were at the park, we were having some conversation with people. They were from Denver, and they said, yeah, our city is built in 11,000 not Denver, but Colorado. They said, yeah, our city we came from was built 11,000 feet in the air. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And so that was just the tip of the ice. But what I was amazed at is that these people decided that they wanted to build something in the mountain. And so they've had to believe this. And this is where this idea that I've been practicing, something that I've been quoting, a quote that I came up with, that really is a constant repeat in a Wynn's household is imagination builds a nation. And so when you think about those roads and those cities and those houses perched on the hill, it started with the imagination. So imagination builds a nation. And so we must believe that God has entrusted us with the power and the quality to produce something of value. Remember, God, most of the time, he uses people to accomplish his purpose. And so we need to believe this. Acts chapter 17, verse 25 tells us this. God has given us life, breath, and everything. And I'm living to use my life, breath, and everything to bring God glory and create value for others. And so as I think about that verse in Acts 17:25, it has become the theme of my life. I want to use my life, breath, and everything to bring God glory and create value for others. Remember, God has entrusted to us life, breath, and everything, and we are responsible for using it. And so we need to have the confidence in knowing that God has given us this. And so you must know what you have been entrusted with and deploy it. Let me say this. You must know what you've been entrusted with and deploy it. You need to use it. Don't let it rust. Don't let it sit, but put it to work deploying it. So that's the first thing, entrusted. And I want to remind you this, it's not about pride, but it's about productivity. Welcome to Missionary Moneymaker, the podcast where making a dime is making a difference. I'm Carl James Wynn Jr. And we believe this, mission and money were never meant to be separated. Every Christian in the marketplace is a missionary, called to create value, solve problems, and steward influence for the glory of God. This podcast is a discipleship movement, a marketplace masterclass, and a prophetic reframe of how we think about work, wealth, and calling. Here, we equip entrepreneurs, professionals, and leaders to increase their impact, income, and influence without guilt, without comparison, just calling. If you're ready to leverage your past, walk in obedience, and build with purpose, you're in the right place. Let's go to work. Point number 2 is equipped. We need to understand that we are equipped. The second part of productivity is we must believe we are effective in bringing about change. In short, influence. That's what influence is. Influence is bringing about a change. And so we must believe that we are effective in bringing about a change. Now, again, I don't know what that change is for you in the marketplace, in your industry, but you need to realize that you are there to influence that marketplace, that industry, your job, your customers, in some kind of way. You are there for that. And you are there to bring God glory by bringing about change in that industry. And so we need to realize over the course of our lives, we've accumulated our experiences, our expertise, our education, all shaped by the environments that we've been in. And because of that, we are uniquely set up to serve in a particular way. It goes back to what I've been saying is this, and I got this from my great friend Leo Simpson II. He has these 5 greatness saying, and one of his greatness saying is this: is that we're called to live a life of contribution. And so when we understand what we've accumulated over time, we then understand how we are equipped to uniquely serve. And so when you think about your experiences, your expertise, your education, the environments that you've been in, and even your ethnicity, these things make you unique. And it equips you to uniquely serve. And it goes back to what I've been living by. And the quote that I've come up with is this: you're different to make a difference. So that is consistently quoted in the Wins household, is because I want my children, I want our family to know that we're different to make a difference. And so if I'm talking to you right now, you are different to make a difference. You are uniquely equipped to serve in a way that God has only equipped you to serve. And you need to be effective in serving in that way in the marketplace, whatever industry you may be in. And so for me, for example, right, I'm creating this podcast right now. God has equipped me, right, to be able to write books, to be able to speak. He has given me the time to be able to do this. He's given me the desire to do this. And I'm creating this podcast because I am uniquely equipped to speak to you, my brother and sister in Christ, to empower you to go out and make an impact in the marketplace, to help you increase your impact, your income, and your influence by glorifying God and creating value for other people. Right? And so as I look back over my experiences, I'm uniquely equipped to serve in this way. Another way that I'm uniquely equipped to serve is how I'm working right now on a college campus of Texas Southern University, investing in the students, right? I'm discipling, developing, and deploying these Christians to glorify God and live lives of contribution. Of course, I'm collaborating with my team, but I'm uniquely set up. One way I'm uniquely set up is that God has blessed me with the ability to go out and connect and bring resources to our ministry. So I'm having a relationship, I'm having a conversation with other believers to help bring about financial resources, people resources here, so that we can expand our ministry. I know what I'm uniquely set up to do, and I'm doing it. Again, remember, it's not about pride, but it's about productivity. And so you need to evaluate your experiences, your expertise, your education, the environments that you've been placed in, how it shaped you. And you need to understand that you are equipped to serve uniquely, and you need to do it. And when you understand that, it gives you confidence to go out and serve. It gives you confidence, and it helps you be more productive. Let me say this. When you understand this particular point, it helps you to have what I call positive influence. What is positive influence? It is influence that is aimed at a particular area. It is influence aimed at a target. When you understand how you are uniquely designed with your education, with your experiences, with your expertise, with the environments that shaped you, you are now uniquely aimed at a particular issue, and you can go solve some problems there. So I don't know what industry you may be in. It doesn't matter. But I do know is that what I do know is that you are equipped to serve some industry in a way that only you can serve. And I want to encourage you to go out and do it. The last point is this: it's execute, right? We must believe that we can execute on our assignments, whatever that may be, whatever your assignment may be in the market. We must believe we can bring about results, benefits, and profit. This, again, it goes back to productivity. We must believe that we can execute on this. We got to have the confidence in knowing that we can do this. And again, I want to say this is not about pride, but it's about productivity. We need to realize what God has given us. We need to realize how God has given us the opportunity to be developed so that we can go out and solve real problems in a real broken world for a real God who loves the world. And so it goes back to execute. You need to know that you can execute on a particular issue. And that's why I'm doing this, because I believe that I can execute. I believe I can bring about results, benefits, and profits through this podcast, through me writing books, through me helping Christians write and publish books, through me helping Christians increase their impact, their income, and influence by glorifying God and creating value for other people. I believe that I can execute on it. And I'm doing it, and I'm pursuing it with all of my heart, with all of my energy, with all of the things that God has entrusted to me. Remember, God has given us life, breath, and everything, and I'm using my life, breath, and everything to pursue this mission and to execute on my assignment. So, because it goes back to, it's about productivity. We need to give God the best return on his investment. And when we think about this, think about the parable of the talents, right? Jesus talks about the parable of the talents is that the master entrusted to the servant certain things, and the servant with one talent failed to execute. The servants with the other talents, the talents of 2 and 5, they executed. They brought about results, benefits, and profits. So they took 2 and they made into 4. They took 5 and made into 10. I may be off on my numbers, so forgive me. But the reality is they were profitable. And so you got to believe that you can execute. Remember, the master, he was expecting that. The expectation was productivity. The expectation was profitability. The expectation was expansion, increase, not just addition. And so for us as Christians, we need to realize God is not a God of just addition. He's a God of multiplication. Be fruitful and multiply. Subdue the earth, right? And so go out and make disciples of all nations. God is a God of multiplication, right? He wants us to be fruitful. That's not just, one fruit on a tree. He wants you to be fruitful, right? I think as I've been processing this, I think this is one of the reasons why Jesus cursed the fig tree, right? Because what happened is, the fig tree was taking all of the nourishment and from the soil and the roots and from the earth, but it wasn't producing anything. It had all of the nutrients, all the soil, the nutrients and all of the benefits for being rooted in the soil, but it wasn't producing anything. And so you need to understand this, is that God does not give you things for you to be unproductive. He wants you to be fruitful. He wants us to be fruitful. He wants us to share this with other people. He wants expansion, growth, multiplication. He wants us to execute. And so if you're going to have confidence in carrying out your assignment, you must believe that you can execute on certain things. And remember, if you have struggle with believing that you can execute, then go back to the episode before where we talked about proficiency. You may need to grow in your proficiency if you don't believe that you can execute on a particular assignment. Go and learn. Go and grow so that you can execute. So as we wrap up this podcast, I want you to realize that this is not about pride, but this is about productivity. This is about increasing God's kingdom right where you are in the marketplace. Remember, 99% of Christians are living in the marketplace by working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And so we need to be equipped to go out and make an impact. And that's the goal of this podcast. I want to equip you as missionaries in the marketplace to help you increase your impact, your income, and your influence for the glory of God and the good of other people. And so let's construct the twin towers of productivity, right? So that we can understand that it's possible. And we can understand that I'm capable. So you want to realize this is that I'll just some of the things that I've said is this: imagination builds a nation. You need to use your mind to imaginate, to be innovative, to think about things, be a creative. God has given you the ability to create something out of something, right? Not something out of nothing, because that's God. But God has given us the ability to create something out of something, and we can use our imagination to do it, right? The computer that I'm recording on, the microphone I have, somebody had an imagination. And so imagination builds a nation. Use your imagination to expand God's kingdom in the marketplace right where you are. The other thing that I said in this episode is this: you need to realize God has entrusted you with life, breath, and everything, and you need to be focused on how can I give God the best return on his life, breath, and everything. And so we need to understand this, is that the first thing we need to understand is that we need to understand what God has entrusted to us. We need to understand that we are equipped. And then the third thing, we need to understand that we can execute. We got to believe these things, and we got to go out and make an impact. Now, if this podcast has helped you, it's been encouraging to you, I would love for you to like, share, subscribe, and leave some comments. Let me know, give me some feedback on the episode, because I like to hear from listeners. I'm so happy when I hear from people, because it lets me know that I'm making an impact. So go ahead and leave a review, leave a comment wherever you are listening on it, to let me know how it's impacting you. And I'll close with this. Go ahead and wherever you are, go ahead and hear it. Go ahead and read it. Go ahead and live it, but also go ahead and share it. Again, God bless you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Missionary Moneymaker, where making a dime is making a difference. This is a discipleship movement, a marketplace masterclass, and a bold reframe of mission and money, helping Christians increase impact, income, and influence without guilt, without comparison, just calling.